Hello, everyone. This is Wednesday, March 5th, and 2025, and it is 9:33 a.m. here on the west coast of
Hmm.
Turtle Island. And here is our sparse attendance this morning in the Living Resilience Community of Practice
Oh boy.
as it goes through its transformations and changes, transitions, along
Hmm.
with the rest of the world in these extraordinary times. And I feel like it's inevitable that we're going to have an exceptional session today, Richard. I so appreciate your consistency in being here, and my heart goes out to everyone who might consider uh, re revisiting the community of practice. I know that it has been an uncomfortable transition time, and I don't know how it will all shake out. And it's very
Right.
much my intention to bring a sense of continuity or possible thematic threads that we can consider together. Like, what does it take to stay stable as a circle of people just doing their best to stay sane and to stay connected with the web of life, not to mention each other in a time when that kind of essential connection is under threat from every possible direction. So, again, my warmest outreach, no matter what anybody who's watching this recording, whether you're going to return to this circle or not, I am so clear that each of us is doing the best we can, and each of us will make the choices that best suit ourselves right now. And so I trust that in each of you and in myself. And and it is a time to find our people. So whether this circle is your people or you will find others, I wish us all the best as we reinforce our our way of coming together with others, way of coming together with the web of life. These are more essential actions and intentions than ever. So just wanted to give y'all a sense of where I'm coming from. I've got a piece I'd like to share and open up with us for us today.
Yeah.
But before we do that, I'd very much like to have you and me check in, Richard. And you were actually it didn't take much to get you to get going this morning when I just asked how you doing. And so if you wouldn't mind starting again and checking in a little bit, I'd sure appreciate it.
Sure. Okay. Um, hmm. Well, I couldn't bring myself to watch the address last night that Trump gave to the joint session of Congress, but I've been reading up about it and hearing a little about it, and apparently it was quite an unbelievable shit show. And of course, the Republicans loved it and they thought he was great, and they're constantly standing and applauding and all this stuff, and the Democrats were like horrified and holding up signs saying lies and Trump and Musk steals and not true. Wow. Yeah, I mean, just okay. Personally, well, Darlene and I have been having kind of a tough 2 weeks, mainly because she's been having a lot of trouble eating, and I've mentioned that before, and it's getting better. So she's getting a little less, irritable. She can eat better and she's less irritable. But I mean, we're both pretty tuned into what's going on in the country and in the world, and we're pretty freaked out. I mean, both of us. And, I've been writing about that horrendous meeting between Trump and Zelensky, and with JD Vance sitting there, and just the horrific. the really horrific crap that went down in that meeting. I mean, to me, it just seemed like a pretty much like a pre-planned ambush.
Hmm.
And but I think, it was all. We can talk more about this later, but I mean, it really seems to me that it was designed to marginalize Ukraine and reaffirm our alliance with Russia, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Um, and so I've been writing about that because, for the longest time, nobody wanted to believe that Trump was actually working with Russia or working with Putin or that he was a, you know, asset for Russia. But I think it's becoming more and more obvious. And, yet, of course, the Republicans are going to keep denying it forever, apparently. But I was writing about that because, we just can't deny it anymore. I mean, this country's basically been sabotaged by Russia through Trump,
Hmm.
and it's really amazing. It's completely mind-boggling. But anyway, on a practical level, I have absolutely no idea how to deal with all this crap.
Hmm.
Um, the Democrats don't seem to have any idea either. I mean, nobody seems to know what to do. Um, so, I mean, I'm just taking care of my little personal circle here. And our therapist, Darlene, and my therapist that we're going to again tomorrow, she keeps reminding us that, we're just going to make ourselves miserable if we keep focusing on all these things that are out of our control, and that we should focus more on our little circle of control, as she calls it, or our little circle of influence, or whatever. And that's fine. We can do that. But, meanwhile, I don't really know how to ignore the world, falling down and going to shit around us. So, it's weird. I mean, I've talked about this before. I mean, this feeling like, okay, my personal life is still fairly normal, and yet everything's falling apart all around us. And I guess my own personal life won't be normal for that much longer, but for the moment, it sort of is, kind of. I guess that's my check-in.
All right.
Christ.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in a similar boat of just noticing best I can what the capacity appears to be of the US as a nation, of the world, to be able to accommodate the speed and intensity of the fire hose to the face of these times. You know, it's not
Yeah.
just the media, it's every expression coming at us.
Oh, yeah.
And hmm, I'm noticing for myself that it really is a time of mustering. Uh, the word I'm going to use is just it's different than I usually hear. I usually hear in the personal growth world or the pop psychology world is intention. You know, people want to set an intention for the meeting
Oh,
or
yeah.
for the year or whatever.
Sure.
And the word I'm inclined to use these days is one that's quite a bit different. But it's similar called intent.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know what the definition is. I'm not current on looking in the dictionary and how it's commonly used. But energetically, in my time of being mentored, there's a potency, there's a direct connectedness uh, to energetic forces, if you will, um, that's involved. That's not just a mental exercise or if I plan or think positively and so on, which sometimes in intentions can be that way. This is a time, um, where it really is time for me to just take the gloves off and this is time to not fuck around that I might do that I might do if I was giving a half-assed effort to be involved with something or I mean well but I've got a lot of stuff to do and I give it half an effort which is something I'm not proud to say that I do from time to time. Um, but I'm just trying mostly to draw a distinction of this appears to be a time to step over a border from where I might be inclined to give something half my effort or half my attention or just throw out a kind of a stinky opinion about those people over there or that shit that's going on or whatever, and just throw out a kind of a low resolution judgment and call it a day. Like that's as much thinking as I need to do about something. And intent really reminds me, what I'm cued in my own system to do is to be reminded of my core values and go as deeply in that direction as I possibly can touch into, and to notice the things that have come in kind of by default. How I'm spending my time in the evening. It's not that I should never watch TV again, but I've been watching more TV than usual for the past few months in the evening, and it's escapism stuff. It's actually been pretty good. But I know that there are other practices, other reminders into my system, other cues into my relatedness with other people, with loved ones, and with the web of life that, okay, I'm just slowing down. Instead of describing it, I'm just touching in for a moment.
Yeah.
And so this is what I'm feeling it's time for. Like, uh, one way of framing it is like a warrior going into battle and really discovering before stepping out into that battle, reminding where the core is, the core that I would want to be able to be present to in every step out into that battle, ideally. So I'm a little daunted by that, using that framing, because there's enough energetic violence going on around the world right now that it's literally like World War III when I feel into the energetic violence. This is no nonsense. This is really happening, and it is really energetic bloodshed
Oh,
at a
yeah.
scale that I've never experienced before.
No.
So I can only pray that it does not become a physical reality. It's bad enough being an energetic reality. And I notice there are kind of upwelling large waves of each of those core feelings that we talk about from time to time. There is definitely anger that comes up in waves. I would actually, it's very safe to call it rage. And there are waves of fear that come up from time to time. None of these stays residual in my system, resident in my system constantly.
Right.
There is a small hum of each one. None of them completely disappears either, but goes back to just a small background hum for each of them for much of the time. And sadness or grief is the one that really consistently for the past couple of years, really since Gaza became a visible aspect of global humanity,
Right. Yeah.
I've shelved much of my residual or latent grief, and I've only recently gotten to tend to any of that grief, and that's been a great relief. Not nearly enough, but It's a good start. And then joy. And I've been very, very thankful to also have a pulse on my relationship with joy, which tells me I'm connected with some amount of the actual web of life. It's not that the other parts are not, but this is the one that gives me the purest signal
Yeah.
that I'm connecting in a good way with it. If
Hmm.
it's with other people or if it's a beyond human earthling, or it's some other, usually more energetic aspect of the world we live in. And I'm very thankful for that. And the last thing I'll say about intent and where I am right now in this process of like really, really returning to imagine it's like I haven't done chin-ups in a long, pull-ups in a long time. And so when I'm remembering intent, I'm remembering, oh yeah, this involves some other muscles that I haven't been active with in a while.
Hmm. Yeah.
I remember how to do it, but I haven't in a while. And I think there's some sore muscles coming my way because it always involves, especially in this time with the stuff that you and I are already talking about, Richard, it involves shadow work. And that
Hmm.
isn't just my accurate perception of the shadow and going on in the world. That's like so fucking obvious. It's like beating me over the head. But
Yeah.
really, the work is, and the sore muscles and connection with intent, the inner work is going to come from me doing some of my own shadow work in this group, in my other relationships, in my relationships at work, in town, with the other circles I get to sit
Hmm.
in. Um, it's a time to just do some inner housekeeping, some inner energetic and psychological housekeeping,
Yeah, I wanted to say something,
hygiene.
but are you still in your check-in or have we
I
moved on?
I'm just about done. I'm just about
Okay.
done. I'm just telling
All
you
right.
what
Yeah.
this thing with intent is really the core of what I'm checking in with, and that it is I'm having to dust it off because I've been letting it lay fallow, and I'm not happy about that, but it is an honor to be able to dust it off and to step into that realm again. Thank you
Hmm.
for hearing a long check-in, and I'm done.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I totally know what you're talking. I think I know what you're talking about. Um, well, what I was going to say is, what's really starting to scare me more and more is just the extent to which most people do not seem willing to really do inner exploration or, look deeply into themselves or
Mhm.
do the shadow work that you're mentioning. And I know it's scary because, I mean, I know that I'm kind of very emotionally lazy in myself sometimes. I mean, it's easy for me to distract myself and not pay attention to my feelings or go off and, focus on this or that. Um, but I'd still say, this relates to the intent thing, I guess. I'd still say that one of my core intentions in life and the way I manifest my intent is, I'm not very ambitious in worldly matters. I'm not very ambitious in terms of work. I've never been very ambitious in terms of, money. I've never been real ambitious in terms of outward power or anything like that. But I do have a big ambition, and that is inner healing,
Mhm.
like maybe ultimately enlightenment, but that you can't really, that's not something you can really achieve. But, I'm pretty ambitious in terms of inner growth, I guess. And, and yet, I mean, the point I'm trying to make is, and yet I know my own laziness still. And even though I have that intention and even though I have that ambition, I can still be incredibly lazy, and just not want to deal with stuff or just deflect or do all this stuff. So the point I'm getting at is if I, with that ambition and with that intent, am still so caught up in denial and deflection and avoidance and all this stuff. I mean, can you imagine what it's like for most of these other people? The vast majority of people who don't have that intent aren't ambitious in that way and don't really care if they grow much, emotionally or
Right.
psychologically or spiritually. I mean, wow. So, I mean, I think it's terrifying actually because, if people keep doing the patterns that they're doing and they're never willing to look at their stuff and they don't deal with their shit and they don't do the shadow work, we just keep recreating the same horrors over and over and over again. It's just like this endless nightmare, really, out in the world. And then we have brief periods where things improve for a while, and then the nightmare reasserts itself, and people plunge back down into the shit. It's very, I don't know. I don't know if I'm being overly pessimistic, but I hate to say it. I mean, I really don't think very many people are willing to do this kind of work, hardly any actually. And everybody's busy projecting on other people, and I don't know, man. It's very distressing.
Mhm.
And like I said, I don't think I'm exceptional in any way. I mean, I'm just as lazy as anybody else. I mean, I have a fundamental inner intention, but I get caught up in all the bullshit too, and get caught up in my avoidance and all that stuff, like I was saying. And yet something keeps drawing me back to this path. But most people won't even go on this path. I mean, they won't
Right.
even try it. I mean, even my own partner doesn't really believe in deep inner psychological and emotional healing. Like some part of her just doesn't doesn't believe it. Doesn't want to go there, doesn't believe it. And that's frustrating too. So I don't know. I mean, a part of me is just about ready to give up on humanity. I don't even know what that means exactly, but
Mhm.
I mean, talk about, the death of hope. Uh, um, like situation looks more and more hopeless and grim. And, if we talk about collapse acceptance, I mean, that's part of that is admitting to ourselves that yes, the situation is hopeless and grim, you know.
Mhm.
But then what the hell do we do with that? It's like you can't go through life thinking like that and feeling like that all the time. It's just too much. It's
Yeah.
too dark.
Yeah. Richard, may I
So
ask a clarifying question?
sure.
Um, you were just expressing what seems to be a core element of just how you're constituted in life is that you really didn't have any attention to offer to business or making money or fame or that kind of stuff. That uh, one of the threads that you've held close to yourself has been that of inner healing, that
Hmm.
of inner growth, perhaps even, I don't know, you didn't say the word, but evolution of some kind, possibly.
Yep.
And I can absolutely resonate with what you're saying. It's just always been far more important. And I'm just slowing down a little bit because I was really moved by you said, and I'm sorry, I might not remember the sentence
Okay.
exactly, but you said, wow, I'm really moved. That you might be at the edge of giving up on humanity. And
Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's anything more you'd like to share about that. Could you share anything that you're comfortable sharing about your own feeling body when you say that? And anything you might say about the realm of sense making
Hmm.
when you say something like that. It seems like you would have gone through some amount of sense making and kind of smashed your face against a wall.
Right.
And so I'm wondering if you could share about either of those or whatever you might like to just say more about that sense of wanting to give up, possibly.
Yeah, sure. I'm wrestling with this a lot these days. And it's not that I don't feel like I want to give up on myself at all or on my own life or my own enjoyment of life or anything like that. It's just, I think because I'm pretty liberal and progressive in some ways, I've really, I guess I built some kind of built a degree of hope, in the 60s and 70s and, even onward into the 80s and 90s that, humanity was finally starting to get its act together a little bit. And, we were overcoming racism and we were overcoming sexism. And, there was the whole women's liberation movement and even the men's liberation movement and all these things, which I thought were great, really wonderful. But then came the huge backlash, the huge conservative backlash. And turns out most people don't seem to think these things are great, and they can't stand all this woke nonsense. And
Mm.
they want to get rid of wokeness. They want to get rid of, feminists. They want to get rid of, everything that I consider progress, basically. So, um, hmm. So, it's like emotionally, there's this incredible multi-decade crash. It's like this long-term disappointment with the direction of our society and, the direction of our world, really, and humanity. And it's like, seems like I wrote about this a while back, and I said, this one step forward, two step back thing is not accurate at all. It's usually like one step forward, 0.99999 back, and then little step forward, and then 0.999 back. It's like the progress is like so slow and so infinitesimal. So, and then we get into times like these where, you know, fascism is rising. People are acting more and more irrational and selfish and just unconscious. Um, it's like, it's like all the things that I feel are most important and the things that I really value in life are being trashed left and right all around me. And it's just incredibly discouraging. I mean, that's what I keep coming back to is this incredible sense of disappointment and discouragement.
Mhm.
And, and I hold in the back of my mind these things that Don once said to Carlos Castaneda, particularly the one about human folly being infinite,
Mm.
which is a pretty amazing statement. Um,
Yes, it is.
and I come back to that, but then on a heart level, I just cannot accept the fact that humanity is so dim-witted and slow and so backward, and that we're not willing to progress really, and that we're constantly turning the clock back to the old horrors and all these old stupid ways of being. Um, I don't know. On an emotional level, it's devastating. I mean, it's just really painful and it's just horrendous. I can I cannot believe that most of humanity really wants to be this way,
Mm.
and that people keep choosing the same old bullshit over and over again. Um, so as for making sense of it all, unfortunately, I'm starting to think that, these waves of insanity kind of engulf humanity from time to time. And I don't know if it's like we're just reversion to a more primitive version of ourselves or whatever it is, but these waves of primitiveness and waves of fascism and waves of incredible conflict and violence just happen occasionally. And I mean, there was one in the 1930s, and there's another one happening over the last 10 years, especially in this country. And I mean, if it does seem like a kind of madness that comes over people, and I honestly don't know what we can do about it, if anything. So, emotionally, it's just, I mean, it's everything. It's like incredibly sad. It's incredibly painful. It's incredibly angering. It's, it's, kind of all the emotions all mixed together.
Yeah.
That answer your questions?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
It's really hard. I mean, and I mean, I don't have any idea how to deal with all this. And, the paltry things that we can do politically, like, holding rallies or going to, little democratic get-togethers or whatever, or even holding town halls with our representatives. I mean, it all seems like pretty tiny in the face of what's going on. It's like, one grain of sand out of a whole beach. So, I don't know, maybe all there is at this point is collapse acceptance, but I don't know how to accept all this shit.
Hmm.
I really don't.
Yeah.
It's just unacceptable. It's fucking crazy. I mean, it's like, is this really what we're here to do? Being inundated by this insane wave of bullshit?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I'm very in touch with these feelings because I've been writing about all this stuff a lot the last few days. And I mean, the spiraling downward, the rate of the downward spiral seems to keep intensifying and quickening.
Hmm.
And it's quite overwhelming. I'd love to hear your point of view about all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's pretty similar in some ways, but you probably have your own take on it too.
Yeah. Well, first, just thank you. Thank you for being so honest as to say a few minutes ago that there are times when you're close to giving up on humanity,
Oh
which
yeah.
I think is just important honesty. And it does remind me of a piece that I'm sure you've heard me talk about back in my teenage years. Um, I really got the vivid message that we would do this to ourselves. I didn't know what this
Yeah.
meant, but
Yeah.
I knew we would decimate our habitat, our one and
Yeah.
only Mother Earth.
I know. I know.
So I knew that much. And I also knew that it would have to do with this thing that we just call business, but really is at the core of how we talk to ourselves about how justifiable it is that we're killing our own Mother Earth, how we can possibly justify that. That implies a self-terminating and insane culture.
Yep.
And I again wouldn't have, I can say that in a sentence now. And back as a teenager, I just knew little paragraph fragments of, yeah, it's going to go like this, or it feels like we're so greedy. And, just it was simple there than simpler words. And I didn't really know
Right.
which concepts would be the ones that would come to the front and just decimate huge aspects of what we call normal and good and progress and so on. And I keep coming back to how core it is now for me. This is just my take, and I'd love to
Yeah,
hear from all kinds of folks, especially in this living resilience circle, the
yeah,
greater bunch of folks.
right.
Um, it seems like it more than ever before, because I've been using this term, and I'm not the only one using these terms for a long time now, at least a decade, of it's really time to find our people,
Yeah,
and it's time to do inner work.
yeah,
And it's long past time to do inner work, from the elders that I've been listening to for a long time.
yeah.
That's actually something I started hearing back when I was a teenager. And that's what I read between the lines in Carlos Castaneda and with other shamanic and
Oh
energy
yeah,
instructors, was that there is nothing salvageable about that world that you call normal, that you're going to go from the desert where I was to, back home and just doing daily life. You can go back and do that, but there is nothing salvageable about that. And it was tough. Those were tough words to hear back then.
yeah.
And I carried them with me through my own version of being fully engaged in business as usual.
Yeah.
Fully engaged, flying around the world, doing fun, sexy, high-paying jobs of corporate consulting and training. And,
Hmm.
I was as much in that thing as anybody.
Huh.
Only I had in my pocket the whole time, knowing full well that I was a contributing member,
Oh
card
yeah.
carrying member.
Hmm.
And so coming back to right now, what's present to me about that is it is time to find our people, and it is time to do the inner work that starts with, it doesn't start with, but it is at its center. It's important to include at least basic shadow work for ourselves individually and as a small, fledgling, well-meaning group of people. It is so easy to, we're all saturated from birth in this energy of this system, this self-terminating system, this
Oh yeah.
zero-sum system. And we can cancel culture ourselves right out of a little well-meaning circle like that,
Oh yeah.
you
I've
know,
noticed. I've
just
noticed. Yes.
have one mistake in the space and bam.
Yep.
So I'm just noticing that, and I'm doing my best to just keep my heart open and keep um, doing whatever outreach and clearing and reconnecting and correcting mistakes and whatever of those kind of outreach in good faith that I can. Because if I
Yeah.
if I don't, it seems like the default is that the momentum of our self-terminating structures and system is to take us off center individually and to
Yeah.
tear us apart as any kind of a group wants to form and create
Right.
sovereignty and solid communication and soul-based connection and earth-based connection. It's just going to get slaughtered just one way or another. So
Well,
that's
yeah, I was going to
that's what I
mention
would say.
that, it seems to me part of the problem of this time we're living through is, we're being bombarded by so much stuff all the time, both decent information and tons of disinformation. And then we got the whole fire hose to the face of all the events that are happening and all the crazy shit going on in the world. So I think on some level, everybody's nervous systems are really overstimulated, And, because of that, everybody's kind of hair triggered, and so like people get set off really easily by little things. I mean, little slights that maybe didn't wouldn't bother somebody like 30 years ago or whatever. Today it's like, these things happen and suddenly somebody's flying off the handle and all enraged about, some little thing that happened or some little thing somebody said. So I think we're dealing with that too. It's like everybody's nervous systems are way overwhelmed and everybody's on edge, and
Hmm.
that makes it even harder to keep
Yeah.
connecting and be honest and maintain connections and group bonds and stuff like that. I'm kind of just speaking to the things you were bringing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's really tough.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know, man. I mean, if the whole collapse scenario is correct, and it does seem to be, multiple collapses actually, then, I mean, the fact of the matter is society's going to get increasingly insane,
Hmm.
and people are going to get increasingly insane, and a lot of people are going to kill each other off or die or whatever is going to happen, but a lot of people aren't going to make it.
Yeah.
And I'm not at all convinced I'm going to be one of the ones who makes it. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But, an awful lot of people are going to end up dying, and it's pretty pretty ugly scenario.
Yeah.
Somehow we got to make our peace with that too. You know,
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. Richard, I'm wondering if you would mind, I'd like to share at least kind of the first image and a couple of quotes from a very recent David Price piece from your hometown in Medium.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've been reading some of his things recently. I don't know if I read the one you're talking about. I'll tell you in a minute. But
Yeah, and I just it's so damn current. He's literally is just talking about the Zelensky Trump,
oh yeah,
White House bullshit.
okay, right.
And so it's just his take. And you know that I really appreciate David Price mostly for his way of weaving his expertise about art.
Yeah,
And somehow it's got some kind of a search engine around quotes that is astounding. He just
yeah.
finds beauties.
I know. Yeah,
And then his own writing is damn strong as well. And so I would just like to bring
yeah.
in kind of that art and beauty based perspective for a moment. Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. I'm gonna share screen and then
Okay.
just read a bit, and you're welcome to chime in. I don't unless I'm gonna leave it to you to vote if you'd like to continue into his words or not. I think there's plenty to appreciate just from the initial image,
Hmm.
the title, the initial image, and the quotes. So I'll just get that as quickly as I can here.
Sure.
Okay, can you see that okay? New Age of Ruthlessness.
Yeah, I haven't seen this one yet. Okay, wow, that's quite an
Okay.
image. Yeah.
So again, for those who have not seen the previous things, I try to post something from David Price as a muse element in each
Yeah.
month of the Islands of Sanity in a Mad World course.
Yeah.
So this will be one of them in coming months. But for now, let's just look through. Again, the imagery he brings is so artful and heartful. And then we'll go into some quotes underneath it. So
Yeah. Sure.
at a young age, this child decided to liberate himself of all material belongings in order to dedicate his life to being a sadhu or a holy man in India. He's like the living embodiment of a Hindu god.
Oh wow. Okay.
The fact that he regards himself as a living temple is wondrous to me. His whole life is dedicated to being a form of refuge for others.
Huh.
Giving is a virtue, not codependent giving, but giving beyond oneself with no expectation. The Sanskrit word for it is seva.
Oh, yes. Yep.
It's from a person named Lisa Christine. What made the spectacle in the Oval Office on Friday so haunting is that it seemed to confirm dramatically and before all the world the triumph of that darker, lower American spirit over its opposite at this juncture of history. And not only because of one man, if we're honest, it's a triumph that feels weighty, that feels earned.
Yeah.
President Trump has always been a mix of alien invader and emanation of the collective American being. And here again, the "this is not who we are" fantasy continues to ring more and more hollow. This is very, very much who we are now. Words that I've never heard Robert Reich speak quite so piercingly.
Yeah, he's a really smart guy. I've been following him for years, but this is a real this is a real good quote. Yeah.
Our shock is even greater than before. A new era of ruthlessness has begun. German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock made a statement in connection with the horrible videos of the Oval Office scandal. That's from Ukraine News. I'm going
Yeah.
to say the quote again just for the to remind ourselves what this person has said. Our shock is even greater than before. A new era of ruthlessness
Yeah.
has begun.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh my. Yeah.
So, is that enough to spark us for a little while, or would we like to hear David Price's words as well?
Let's uh let's read the third paragraph down, the one that starts, "Are we entering a catastrophic era?"
Okay. Would you like to read that?
Oh, sure, I guess. Um, are we entering a catastrophic era? If so, is there anything we can do to fend it off, or should we just get out of the way and let it play out? I admit I'm not inclined to do that. I believe we need to assess the situation and do what we can to speak the truth as we see it. But at the same time, we have to keep our personal balance. We are members of the community of beings, but we have to stay as sane and healthy as possible. At times like these, when there's a tidal wave of misery and rage in the offing, the last thing the world needs is panic and blind reactions. It needs clear thoughts and emotions that meet the moment. We can't afford to hide, and we can't afford to seek vengeance. We can't afford to imagine the world in terms of black and white. Hmm, interesting. Okay.
Can we
I think
stop there for the moment?
That's plenty for the moment, I would say. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, he does find some great quotes, I'll tell you. Wow.
Yeah.
And his own writing is great too. I don't know, it's like the Pandora's box, analogy or story or whatever. I mean, that's really seems to apply to what's going on over the last decade. It's like Pandora's got box got opened and all these horrors and all these evils and all these things just poured out of it and started spreading through humanity. And I know it didn't really begin 10 years ago, but those things just keep spreading and spreading and spreading and growing and growing. And
Mhm.
it's like the tidal wave of darkness and insanity and horrors. I mean, he was really raising the question I was raising earlier. It's like, so we just give up on all this, give up on humanity and just let it all go to shit and kind of watch it play out? Or how do we respond?
Yes. Yeah, I
Yeah.
heard that also and appreciate the echo of your words earlier. I'm noticing also for me, the resonance came in that last quote from the German official that
Yeah.
we're in a new age of ruthlessness.
Yeah.
But just as we got going, before we hit the record button today, Richard, I remember sharing with you that I know it's not news to you, but for whoever watches the recording,
Yeah.
my primary way of scanning the world is, kind of reading the room, if you will. And that room could be the globe, it could be this moment with you and me, and so on,
Right.
is an energetic scan. And the energetic scan reveals quite a bit of different information than when I'm looking at the headlines and doom scrolling on the screen, or if I'm talking with somebody or walking down the street, the physicality of the world or the stuff we call normal. And I was sharing with you that my experience of these times is very much like what it's been for decades now since I've been aware in this energetic way, that the energetics is almost always more raw and often more violent than the physical reality that we might see on TV or walking down the street again.
Yeah.
And now more than ever, it is vicious. It's vicious and it's happening now and it's happening all the time and it's unspeakable and it's at a scale I've never seen before. And it
Yeah.
shows no signs of slowing down or reducing in intensity. And I resonated with that quote of we have entered a new era of ruthlessness.
Oh yeah.
And I just wanted to speak that because it so matches that energetic read of what's going on. And we so rarely get to hear accurate sharing about that energetic read in our world, in which, even at the regular level of perception and sharing, we now live in a world in which truth has disappeared, is decimated, and it's misinformation, and it's crazy.
Yep.
So,
Well, I think a real good question is, and one that most people don't want to even look at, is what happens inside of people that makes them ruthless or makes them okay with ruthlessness.
mhm,
And that's where the madness element comes in, this
yeah,
like perversion, this perversion of our thinking or this perversion of our emotional bodies. It's like something really strange about it. I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's like, I keep thinking back to what happened in Rwanda with that incredible genocide in Rwanda.
yes,
I mean, we always think, it can't happen here. Like, what happened in Nazi Germany? Oh, it can't happen here. Or, what happened in Rwanda? Oh, no, that can't happen here. I mean, the truth is, I think that it could happen anywhere. And just takes certain triggers or certain things to happen in the society to trigger people getting into this weird downward spiral of madness. And they always find reasons to justify the madness and they find ways to make it seem rational. But think about it. I mean, the Hutus and what was the other tribe there? I mean, there's two main branches in Rwanda. There's the Hutus and
is it the
Tutsis.
Tutsis?
Tutsis, was it? I think
I
Tutsis.
think so.
Yeah. And they, for some reason, always disliked and hated each other. And so what do? They start massacring each other.
Mhm,
Wow. And
yeah,
this went on for quite a while. I mean, I think like 1 million people got brutally murdered.
yes,
And this is like not that long ago.
yes,
I mean, this is our modern world, right?
mhm,
So there's something in people that can easily get triggered and devolve into complete depravity and insanity and ruthlessness. I mean, I'm bringing this up because of that ruthlessness theme.
Yes.
And people can get totally into that mindset and get completely lost in it, and they lose their humanity, and yet they think they're rational. They think they're acting intelligently. They want to be doing what they're doing. I mean, wow. So there's something going on that's making people more and more ruthless and more cruel, you know.
Yes.
It's like, okay, it's happening again. It's happening here now, you know. Shit.
Yeah. Yes.
Very painful and very, frightening and disturbing, Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially that it is so out in the open.
Yeah.
That was the shocker that I've heard a number of senior reporters, senior diplomatic officials who have
Yeah.
been around for multiple administrations in the USA or in their various countries, and they've never seen that level of public disclosure because there's always been tense moments. There's
Yeah.
always been controversy, but to have it be so graphically depicted and so obviously just a bullying nightmare on the part of American officials, the president and the vice president
And
just
others. Yeah.
going after
Yeah.
Zelensky and putting him in his place viciously.
Yep. No, I think that was all scripted. I mean, I think it
Sure.
was all maybe not totally scripted, but most of it was sort of planned in advance. And I think it was basically an ambush, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And I think it was designed to put the message out to the world, you
Yeah.
know, we're not going to deal with these Ukrainians anymore. They're weak. They're being attacked. No, they wouldn't even admit they're being attacked. They're in a war with Russia, but Russia's the good guys. Russia's the strong guys. Russia's the one we want to side with.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So those damn Ukrainians shouldn't have started it anyway.
Yeah, right. I know. It's like it really is mind-boggling. It's like the degree of falsity and dishonesty and just complete fantasy about what's going on in the world is
Yeah.
astonishing.
So the a piece that I'd like to bring in, um, it's obvious. It must be obvious to anybody who's watched the series on the kind of the parallel podcast that we offer here, the Poetry of Predicament, the YouTube channel.
Right.
And in the past month, I've put out a three-part series on Christian nationalism, and it also called Christofascism, in which they've played the long game to insinuate themselves into every level of U.S.
Oh
culture
yeah.
and U.S. government, and they won. They've done it. That's old news now, and that's the layer that truly inspires fear in me because their level of control and intentional, seamless control at every level. Um, it makes up for the psychedelic rodeo bullshit that is Donald Trump and his stupid ass cabinet, because I know that the people doing the puppet strings are absolutely clear as a bell, sober as can be, and they have a Christo-fascist agenda to get on with, and they're just fine with that kind of expression going on. It's the perfect distraction away from them and what they're making happen at the layer behind all that rodeo.
Well, it freaks me out even more is that, I mean, I totally agree with you that that's going on. But then what about all this aligning ourselves with Putin and Russia? And what about this kind of growing alliance between, our country and Russia and Trump and Putin and all that? And then what I've been realizing is that there's lots of different spokes to this fascism wheel. There's lots of different spokes to despotism, and they're all, not all, but there's a lot of them happening now at the same time. I mean, there's the Trump-Putin alliance, which definitely is oriented towards, control and dictatorship and fascism. There's that. There's the Christo-fascism you were just talking about, and there's several other levels to it too. And I mean, there's the neo-Nazis in this country. There's all kinds of white supremacist groups. But the really scary thing, which I realized over the last few days and wrote about, is that they may have somewhat differing philosophies or somewhat differing aims, but the basics of each of these movements is exactly the same. It's all based on us versus them. It's all based on power and control stuff. It's all based on demonizing certain, groups in the population. And all these fascist spokes of the wheel, I don't know how to talk about it. But they're all basically aligned with each other and they're all supporting each other. That's what's really scary. They're all building on each other and supporting each other, and they're all working together basically to
Hmm.
undo the modern world. They're basically working together to
Right.
undo democracy and undo progress and undo any kind of inclusion
Hmm.
and real social sharing. And it's really unbelievable. It's like we're
Yeah.
just reverting to this incredibly primitive state, which again gets back into the ruthlessness.
Yeah.
It's horrifying. It's really horrifying.
Yeah. I absolutely appreciate what you're saying, and I just have a slightly different take on it.
Okay.
That there is a certain amount of just causing, stirring up shit, as Steve Bannon might say, just throwing
Right.
boatloads of shit into the news cycle to just
Yeah.
keep it all spinning.
Sure.
But there is a very intentional backdrop in the
Yeah.
Christo-fascist stuff that I was just talking about, in which is clearly laid out in a document that is intentionally too long that nobody will read that.
You mean
Is
Project 2025 or what?
Project 2025.
Yeah. Right.
And something I'd like to just, I'm going to be doing another episode in that series. I thought it was going to be only two episodes. It went to three,
Yeah.
and I will soon be releasing the fourth episode. And what that's going to focus on is, I mentioned in the first episode with Carolyn Baker, about the roots of something like Margaret Atwood's Handmaid's Tale
Yeah.
is just way too possible right now. There's just too many of these roots that are in place,
Yeah.
and they smack up. Yeah, sure, it was a Hollywood thing. It's Hollywoodized. It's, yeah,
Oh
too much,
yeah. Yeah.
whatever. But there's a scary amount of potential reality showing up. And why I'm saying it this way and right now is, what you'll see if y'all uh, want to watch that next episode is that in a very recent New York Times article, they talked about the recent resurgence of conservative man-woman relationships in particularly married couples and family constellations
You mean the male
across the
dominance,
USA. It is
the patriarchal approach to marriage and all that? Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely,
Oh
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, you can imagine the
Sure.
kind of the dust off all the old uh, tropes about, the woman subservient to the man, obedient to the man, and
Oh
so on.
yeah.
And the article, what's interesting to me is they do their typical, pretty dang good job of writing up what they're seeing from their perspective. What's scary to me is that they didn't mention any connection at all with the uh, Christian nationalist flavor that's been made available and visible and palpable and tasteable.
They didn't?
uh, no,
Huh.
No, the those elements were not that those threads were not tied together and those connections were not made. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And again, I'm just gonna slow it down because this can start to sound like another couple of guys doom scrolling and just pontificating or opining about a bunch of shit.
Yeah, right.
And you know, I was shocked to hear that Carolyn Baker, who is an author who many books, and one of her best books, as far as I'm concerned, is her book about Christofascism. And to hear that she had actually not been able to watch the Margaret Atwood's TV series
Hmm.
about Handmaid's Tale, and that it was just too intense, and she couldn't do it, which she's not thin-skinned. She's
Yeah,
got some capacity. And to hear that really just shocked me. And I have watched every episode and I'm looking forward to finishing up. This will be the last season starting up soon. And it describes a world that is just at the edge of something that I would possibly choose not to be in one way or another. I might just check out.
yeah.
I don't know if that means walking into the wilderness. I don't know if that means doing some sort of suicide. I'll handle that dimension if it ever gets to there in real life. But this is the real deal now. The stuff we're talking about, Richard, week after
Yeah.
week. And I know that I'm not the only one saying that. And I know that you're not the only one writing about that and talking about it. But this is the time, like like at no level before in the 10 years that I've been actively putting out this work. Um, this is the time to do our inner work, and this is the time to find our people and people who connect at the level that is best for each of us. That's something we can only discover for ourselves and then reach out to find the people we resonate with. For me, I keep calling it soul work and soul connection. It's the things that AI hopefully will never be able to uh, surpass us in
Yeah,
terms of
good.
being a
Yeah.
presence that people can't tell the difference between a soulful AI and a soulful person.
Hmm.
That's a nightmare scenario beyond my imagining.
Yeah.
But that's what I believe we're called to now. And so I appreciate this conversation and I appreciate, both of us in at different times just slowing it down and really just allowing ourselves to feel it rather than just describe it or talk about it. And yeah, I guess I could also say that I just didn't expect it to come on with this level of intensity and speed.
Right. Well, Trump was out of office for 4 years, but he never really vanished from the political scene at all. I mean, he was always in the headlines. He was always butting into everything and in the way that he does. And but my point is that he and his people and the Christo-fascists and all these people had those 4 years to put their plans together and to create, their background scenarios that they wanted to, that's not even the right word. Well, planning, but also, coming up with real concrete stuff that they wanted to accomplish as soon as Trump got back into office. And obviously that started happening immediately. I mean, they just hit the ground running. So it was all prepared. I mean,
Mhm.
they had a lot of stuff, ready to go. Um, but I was going to mention, this relates to something you said a few minutes ago. The most recent article I just published on Medium yesterday, actually, um, began with this line or these two sentences. It's happening. The end game has begun in earnest, or the end game has begun in earnest now. So, what all these preparations have been leading up to, like you said, the Christo-fascists, they've been like building this for decades, but in particular, probably the last 4 years, they've had time to put all these plans together. They came out with Project 2025.
Yep.
And now we're in the end game, and it's largely being run and defined by them.
Yes.
Like, wow,
Yeah.
holy crap! It's like these people are dead set on dragging us back into the Middle Ages. It's not even way before modernity and democracy. They want to go back to the Middle Ages. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's pretty terrifying.
Yeah.
Because if anybody knows anything about the Middle Ages, they were pretty horrible,
Mhm.
really horrible.
Well, interesting paradox that everything you're describing about that kind of regression back to a particular time or set of times and patchwork of
Yeah,
supposedly conservative values and um, some sort of being a person of faith at a whole different level. And oh my gosh, it's just like that. But that also happens to coincide with the well, the most advanced extractive and
yeah,
damaging culture and industrial culture that's ever existed, and at the pinnacle of it.
yeah,
And then we're just now adding AI as a turbocharger
right.
to further extract at the next level from both people as resources and also earth resources.
Well,
So
it's
it's
interesting. Those things seem to be opposite. I mean, it's like this urge to go back to the medieval times and go back to this way more primitive kind of society and way of thinking, and having this like super technological thing. But they have something in common. I was just thinking. And the thing they have in common is they're both incredibly primitive. I mean, they're primitive ways of thinking. I mean, they're primitive ways of relating to the world.
Mhm.
And one's advanced technologically and the other isn't, but they're both primitive.
Yeah.
Like, damn.
And one more piece I'd like to add to this kind of free-form puzzle pieces that we're putting in place here is I think it was last week that I read a quote from Edward Bernays from the
Yep.
first paragraph of his book
Right.
Propaganda. And that that page or so that I read actually was such a bold expression of here we are in a time when the real people who govern are the superior human beings. And very thinly veiled is these are white males who are running the world behind the scenes because the masses are clearly uh, inferior human beings. And they need to be led by these superior human beings because if they're not, we will have a wreck of a world. And
Yep.
that that philosophy, if you will, is very much at the core of the tech bro billionaire consciousness
Oh, yeah.
that's being overlaid on governments around the world. So here we are being led by the demigods of the billionaire class who
Yeah.
clearly consider themselves to be vastly superior.
Masters of the universe.
Yeah,
Right. Oh boy.
yeah,
I don't know, man. The momentum, the momentum of these negative changes, the momentum of the horrors that are all going on is so strong now. It's so intense. I honestly can't see any way out of this, without, and of course, I guess right back to the collapse theme. This is all just intensifying the rush to collapse. It's
Yeah, it is.
wow. It's like,
Yeah.
thanks, guys. We needed this.
Yeah. Well, that's
Jesus.
again another point from that first episode in the Christo-fascist series that I was talking
Yep.
about, in which I mentioned in the conversation with Carolyn, isn't what we're seeing called accelerationist?
Yep. Yep.
And that, of course, was in the context of the rapture in that, evangelical and Christo-fascist framing is we're in the end times, and the end times means rapture for those who are chosen, those who are the who are holy enough to be sucked up into heaven, and the rest of us are gonna get, annihilated in the end times.
Yeah, and
So,
I think, going along with that is, like, why are these people so eager to get sucked up into heaven or whatever, however they visualize it? And I have to say, I think these people absolutely hate life and hate this world. They want to destroy it.
mm,
Want all of this to be, they want God's judgment to rain down on the earth, and they want it all to be destroyed. They hate life. They do not, I do not see these people as lovers of life. I mean, they are like filled with hate, and I don't know what it is. It's like this utter disdain for life. It's very bizarre to me.
yeah,
So of course they're trying to bring it all down. I mean, they want to bring everything down. They want to bring the government down. They want to bring society down, and ultimately have the earth be annihilated. Also, they can go to heaven. It's like, fuck you, people. You know,
yeah, yeah,
Jesus, it's just amazing to me. Human folly, infinite.
exactly,
Oh boy,
exactly.
wow. So, I mean, it's good to talk with you about all these things, but man, it's so these times are so crazy and so intense, and this
Mhm.
vortex of negativity that's building in our society is
Right.
really terrifying.
I I appreciate you saying that. I feel inclined to kind of turn the tide a bit as we finish up today's session,
Yeah,
looking
we're almost done. Yeah,
looking to next week. And I'd like to ask us both and anybody who's watching the recording to consider, so if not that doom scrolling, kind of parade of the atrocities going on that we've now documented pretty clearly,
yeah,
if not the focus there, where and how would we deploy our attention in such a way that we could have a life-affirming pocket of humanity, small as it might be, in any of the circles that we convene here in the living resilience space and
right.
so on. So, what is it to do inner work in these times? And what is it to reach out to find your people? How do you do that? How do we put our attention out into the world in a way that is life affirming, no matter how dark life ahead might look, whatever seems to be on the horizon
Hmm.
for us? How do we deploy our attention to somehow be of service to life? How do we deploy our attention and deploy a presence in which we can be of service to those we love? What will be our relationship with fear? What will be our relationship with anger? What will be our relationship with grief? What will be our relationship with joy and celebration? So I offer these as little seedlings, little prompts for our self-exploration between now and the next time we see each other.
Yeah.
And again, for those who may want to transition out of this circle or new folks coming in, you have my in our warmest blessings to whatever you choose to transition into. And look forward to reconnecting whenever we might to be able to just compare notes. How's your path going? How's your life going? How's your deployment of attention and presence going? And I would love to share mine as well with you. So there's the invitation from this side of the screen. And I know that I'm just very present to appreciating anyone who's engaged at any level of this conversation. This is the most difficult conversation in human history.
Yeah.
And so I hope that you'll be gentle with yourselves and really just articulate for yourself how's your capacity doing? How do you do self-care in these times? How do you reconnect with nature or with your pets or with your loved ones? Or how do you let yourself be creative in some small way to take your attention off of that which is not working or that is not life affirming now or so painful?
Hmm.
And so these are a few things that I'd like to just wrap us up with. And just to, kind of at the last moment here, just redirect from what has been fairly accurate, as far as I know, our layout of many of the things that are very disturbing right now.
Yeah.
And then I'd invite us all to remember that we're in circle together, even in between circle times,
Hmm.
and to keep presencing ourselves best we can in the direction of reconnection and presence. Richard, is there anything you'd like to say to kind of wrap it up from your world?
Hmm. Um, well, I pretty much said it all, I think, so far. Just I don't know. I mean, there's a part of me that just really appreciates the little pleasures of life right now, like
Mhm.
you know, eating a really good meal, or sharing a good conversation, or things like that. That pretty basic
Yeah,
human stuff. Real simple stuff. Going for a little walk. Everything's so complicated and so out of control and so devastatingly bizarre right now that sometimes those simple things and real basic things, I guess they just help ground me. They just help me feel like, well, yeah, I'm still here and my life is still okay for the most part, and I'm not going crazy and I'm not like about to rush off and kill somebody or
right.
whatever. So I just keep trying to remember to do those things, appreciate those simple things.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. And once again, thank you for your ongoing great work in your writing in Medium. And every once in a while, you send me a link to something that, for some reason
Right.
or another, you think this seems like a good thread for this circle and so on. I would ask that you please continue to do that whenever you do, because
Sure.
I've I've whined about the fire hose to the face of too much content, even the content I love.
Yeah, yeah, right.
And so it really helps me if you have a strong affinity for any piece that you put out. I would sure appreciate being reminded to check in with it. I would love that.
All right. Right, sure.
Mm.
Yeah. So I guess at least Fiona will be back next week. I know she couldn't be here this week, but I guess
Uh-huh.
she'll be here next week. As far as anybody else, I have no idea.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Hmm. Maybe I might give Allison a call. We've talked a couple of times on the phone. I'm
Great.
kind of curious what's going on with her and if she's, resolved any of her feelings. I think she's probably not coming back, but oh well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, too bad. But anyway, it's always great talking with
Thing.
you.
One last thing. I'm
Yeah,
curious, since it's just you and me,
yeah.
I am never post without asking all of our permission first in the public domain of this community of practice recordings. So I'm wondering if you would be willing to have me post this particular round so folks can get a sense of one random conversation in this
You know,
community of practice world.
fine with me. I'm
Great.
not shy. I mean,
All
I'm
right.
out there, my writing's out there. I'm putting myself out there more and more, and that's part of what I'm trying to do, I guess. So sure.
All right. Well, thank
Yep.
you, brother.
Yep. Thank you. Really appreciate you a lot. And I guess we just keep on keeping on.